and welcome to the Wayfaring Panda. I'm Annette. Today I'm participating in the All About the Mouse hop put on by Shannon Blinn. And this is a hop where we scrapbook Disney photos. I'm going to make a scrapbook layout with some photos that I took at the Italian Pavilion in Epcot. So I'm using these wooden letters as my title, which is Italy. And I'm spraying them with some Nuvo Mica mist, and this is called Crimson Velvet. So first of all, I shake it up really good to make sure I got all the mica mist stirred up, and then I spray them. And it didn't seem to go on real thick. It seems very watery, so then I did end up using a paintbrush to paint it on, so that way I get full coverage. I'm using a wood grain paper for my background, and this one came from Echo Park from their Fall Blessings collection, and this one is called Autumn Trees. I'm using a Lawn Fawn stencil, which is actually a 3-part stencil called Poinsettia Backgrounds, but I'm only using one of the stencils because I just want to build a cluster on top of this, so I don't need the poinsettias. I'm just going to use the pine boughs and the holly, and I'm spraying it with some distressed mica stain, and this is called Fresh Balsam. So, of course, I shake that up really good to make sure I got the mica mist all through, and then I use some mint tape from Scrapbook.com just to hold down the stencil and also to block off the parts that I don't want to use. The letters that I sprayed earlier have now dried, so I'm going over again with the mica mist just to make sure I get full coverage. For the hop this month, we're given this picture to draw inspiration for our layout. So instead of using the characters that's in this, I decided to go with the actual idea of the bingo card and do a grid style. And I wanted to do photos that I have for my pre-2000 pictures because I'm trying to finish up that album. I really don't have too many left. And I believe the photos I took here are obviously of the Italian Pavilion at Christmas time. And so I got different Christmas things from various collections. I'm using this paper from Echo Park. And the journaling card I'm making came from Simple Stories. And then all the little squares I cut as 2-inch squares so that I could do a grid style, which I've never done a grid style, so I thought this would be perfect for that. And this way I can use up all these little scraps I have. I had bought some paper packs to make bags of from a die cut, and then I ended up with all these scraps left over, so I'll probably be using those for years. But anyway, I'm using 13 different squares from that, so at least I got rid of some of the scraps. I'm just going around all the edges of the papers, both the tag and the background paper and the squares, with some distress ink, and this is called Rustic Wilderness. I did not film myself inking all the squares because obviously you get the idea, and I thought that would take too long on the film. I waited to the next night to finish my scrapbook layout because, of course, I needed to let the letters dry. And also, I have to work, so I just work on it a little bit each evening. When I got this idea, I was thinking about the bingo thing and looking at my photos of what I needed to scrapbook. And then I realized I had some of these old wooden letters, and I realized Italy was 5 letters long, like bingo. So I thought that would be great. I looked through my letters, and fortunately, I had all the letters to make the word Italy. So now I'm just kind of laying everything out to see where I want everything, and then start rearranging them to make sure I have kind of different colors and patterns in different spots. I made the Italian flag Mickey Mouse head last summer when I made up a whole bunch of different things for Epcot because I knew I had a lot of Epcot photos to go ahead and scrapbook, and this was just one left over that I didn't get around to doing those photos. And I just made a bunch and actually gave some of them to my mom because she has photos to scrapbook also. I noticed I was missing 2 of the squares, so I couldn't find them, so I went ahead and got out my Creative Memories trimmer as well as 2 more of the scraps and cut those down to 2-inch squares and went around those with the Rustic Wilderness. And of course, after I finished the layout, I did find those 2 missing squares, but I guess it'll be ready for another layout. Then I continue rearranging the squares to get them where I want them to be so that I don't have things that are too much the same right next to each other. I use the grid on my glass mat as well as a quilting ruler to try to keep my squares in a straight line, and I use some Nuvo Deluxe glue to glue the squares to the paper. Now I'm just putting the glue in the middle because I plan on sewing around the squares after it dries. I didn't glue down the letters for Italy yet because I didn't want those on the paper when I sew around the squares. The paper scraps that I'm using came from 2 6x6 paper pads originally that were from the Paper Studio. And these are from 2015, so I'm sure they're not out there anymore. But use what you have. That's the whole point of using the scraps. And also I find if you're going to do smaller pieces like this, smaller paper pads like 6x6 works really well compared to using paper that's 12x12 because they have a smaller patterns to them. Once again, I'm using my glass mat as well as a ruler to draw some lines on my journaling card. I cannot write without lines because it's very crooked if I do, so that's why I always put lines on any of these blank journaling cards. I'm using my crocodile from We Are Memory Keepers to add an eyelet to my journaling card, and I hadn't used it in a while. So first of all, I tried to punch the hole with the part where you usually add the eyelet, but that didn't make a big hole. And then I realized at the top is where they had a spot specifically for punching holes. And then the middle section where you see the black prongs, that's where you put the eyelet in. I'm not sure what company made the eyelet that I'm using. I got a couple boxes of various eyelets, and this one is a gold one. It looks like a star, so I thought that went perfect with this Christmas layout. I'm using some white and green sparkle twine to add a bow to my tag, and I'm not an expert bow maker, but I do the best that I can. I believe this is from Lawn Fawn, but I don't think they make it anymore. Now I'm coming back for another day that I didn't finish the previous night. So I went ahead and sewed around all the squares with some red thread. And I'm adding my photos in my journaling card. And I just arrange those till I get them where I want them. Since these photos are older, they're kind of smaller than the regular 4x6 photos. And the one on the left, of course, I trimmed down. And I matted these with red paper. I went to a scrapbook and stamp show this previous weekend, and I got some dies that are meant for scrapbooking, and the ones that I got are called layout dies, and they just have these rectangles of different sizes that fit standard size photos. And I really like them because they kind of look like an old map style, like a pirate kind of thing, like an old map, or torn paper. So I really like the look of it. But the great thing is they make them so that they fit a 5x7, 4x6, 3.5x5, which is what my larger one is, and then a 3x4 and 2.5x3.5. And I got these from Tall Mouse Designs. And I know they have an online store. I'll put the link in the description below, but I don't have an affiliation with them. I'll just put that down there because that was kind of neat because all of my dies are mostly for card making, so it's kind of neat to see some dies that are made specifically for scrapbooking. I attached my photos with some mounting squares and the journaling card and the Mickey Mouse as well as the letters. I just glued them down with my Nuvo Deluxe glue. And this glue I found is strong enough to hold down those wooden letters. I got out some old sticker sheets from Creative Memories and add those to my layout as some extra embellishment and also to build up the cluster there on the bottom right with the Mickey Mouse head. So I encourage you to look through your stash to see what you can use with your scrapbook layouts and use up your scraps and other things that you have because most of the products I used on this layout are really old and were in my stash. I didn't buy anything in particular for this scrapbook page. I will put a list of all the products that I used in the description below if you're interested in any of these that are still out there. Some of these will be affiliate links. They don't cost you anything extra to buy, but I do get a small commission from any sales that the links generate, and that does help support my channel. As a final embellishment, I'm using Pops of Color, which is the glitter kind, and the colors I'm using is gold and ruby. And these are kind of like stickles, although they seem to make more of a peak. I know when the stickles dries, it seems more of a just glitter, and then you lose the kind of glue part, where this is more like a sparkly glue. I do like it forming a little bit of a dome instead of drying flat, but some of them were peaked up a little bit more than I wanted, so I did flick under the paper to bring them down just a little bit. As I mentioned, this is part of a YouTube hop, so there'll be a playlist. I'll put it at the end of the video, as well as the link in the description below. Please hop along. You'll get a lot more inspiration for scrapbooking your Disney photos. And even if you don't have Disney photos, you could have used like the one I did here for any Christmas photos, as well as just other different ones. Just change up the paper and the decorations for whatever photos you do need to scrapbook. There are a lot of very talented people on this hop, so please hop along, and I know you'll get a lot of inspiration and great ideas. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like. And if you're not already a subscriber, I'd really appreciate if you can subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.